everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Performance Café, and specifically to our Coffee Companion series, where we share coffee, biscuits, and learnings every Friday as we talk about human performance in organizations. Today, I'm very pleased that we are going to be joined by Mpumi Hlomuka-Peme. Mpumi, as we know her, is a passionate and experienced technologist with a demonstrated history of working in the technology sector. Mpumi has had a successful career in cloud architecture, business strategy planning, and data-driven digital transformation, and has held various technical roles across multiple multinational corporations. Her aim is to establish herself as an agent of change in the African market through technology innovation and present growth opportunities for the continent globally. And on that note, I'd like to welcome Mpumi. It is lovely to have you here.
Hi, Innocent. Lovely to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Only a pleasure. I've been dying to speak to you since we met at the Women's Networking event. You told us such a powerful story there. But from what we saw at the Women's Networking event to your bio, there seems to be a bit of a gap. What are we missing here?
I think one thing that is sort of glaring when you know me and engage with me is that I'm pretty heavily involved in empowering women in the tech space, and I'm very deliberate and bullish about having a bit more inclusivity in the sector through mentorship, through career workshops that I run. And job shadowing efforts where possible. So yeah, I think that's pretty much the one thing that kind of was missed out of the bio, but it's okay.
Wonderful. Okay, so amazing that you're doing all of these things. Do you think there's an appetite in the market for women in the field?
Oh, absolutely. There is a huge need. First of all, statistics will show you that there's far less women in the tech space, than men, than our male counterparts. And, this is purely driven by, I would say, fear in most cases, where from an early age, girls are not encouraged to take, STEM related subjects, your maths, your sciences, even technology as a subject at school. And that kind of grows, with the little young girl, throughout her life, in terms of her being intimidated about, this big bad world.
So it's so interesting. I don't know if you've heard OSHA's example of algorithms that pick up bias in the way that that recruits have been searched for jobs that actually exclude women from jobs. So I suppose it's that if there aren't women there, they're not going to know to pick up those biases in the algorithms.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And just one more example, it's from a book that I've recently read. It's called Algorithms of Oppression. And here the author speaks about, how a few years ago, when you would Google the term Black woman, you would really get results that were shocking and that really did not represent who, Black women were. And that's purely because, the people that, influence these algorithms are male with a specific bias, right? And it's obviously grown and changed over time, but it's definitely related to what OSHA always says and what this book specifically talks about. So yeah,
wonderful. Definitely. And until people, I mean, we're speaking about a bias against Black and a bias against a woman, but there's also, I think, so many other biases that we face, around gender, about gender identities, more than just gender and stuff like that. So it's definitely something to be cognizant of as we go forward. So with your background in technology, what do you think, where are we going with 4IR and what will be the impact of that?
Ooh, I mean, that topic really gets me very excited because of, the number of opportunities that are out there. So I'll just, kind of zoom into, the African space. First of all, technology has, that potential to really put Africa in the spotlight. And that's really with, the benefits that technology brings to, us as people, us economically, and in various ways. So one of them would be Africa has the youngest population in the world. And that brings about a lot of opportunities in terms of, our outlook as a continent going forward. I recently read a paper by Accenture and Google, and here they speak, about certain trends in the African market, and that would influence, the fourth industrial revolution and Africa's longevity in this era. So one is they recorded about 700,000 developers across Africa, and that obviously sits within South Africa, Nigeria, Morocco, Egypt, Kenya, and those are the more developed countries within Africa. But what that says is, look, Africans are here, and Africans are the best people that can solve their own problems, right? And if we've got developers that are in the forefront that will be able to develop these, applications or certain solutions that will solve these problems, then it definitely brings about a lot of opportunity for growth within Africa as a whole. Africa has recorded about a 4% GDP growth from 2010 to 2019, which is, I think, double, what, the GDP growth has been for Europe. And so, that says to us, look, this is a growing market, and technology is really going to fuel, the next big thing that's going to come out of Africa. What we're also seeing is that, data is becoming more accessible to, your average Africans, as well as mobile devices. And these are the platforms that, we prefer to engage in as Africans, either through messaging platforms or really just, getting to, get basic things done, like sending money. And that's why we're seeing now, fintech playing such a huge role in our growth and in our presence in the tech space, as well as, e-commerce. So there definitely is a lot of opportunity that comes with the fourth industrial revolution and technology, to be specific. But with that being said, there's also the negative connotation to the 4IR in terms of, am I going to lose my job? Is my job going to change significantly? Am I even skilled, for that job? And we've seen statistics also, saying, and with COVID as well, it clearly, showed or articulated the fact that technology really could be, a disruptor and a groundbreaker in our market specifically. Companies are now looking at remote working and different ways of doing things. So instead of 4IR being a threat to us as humans, and playing this battle between humans and machines, it's really an opportunity for us to, one, reskill, and be more, I would say, accessible in the coming future for jobs that will come about, because some of these jobs are unknown at the moment. But that's what brings, that level of excitement and that level of, anticipation in terms of where Africa could really be taken going forward economically. But I'm extremely positive about it, and there's a lot that's going to come out. Someone said the next billionaire or trillionaire is going to come from Africa, and that's totally true.
Wonderful. Well, that's good news for us to be front in the race of something.
Yes.
If you speak so enthusiastically about 4IR, what about the fact that so many people on the African continent are still undereducated, don't have access to, things like fiber, Wi-Fi, that kind of thing? Is it an issue, or is this being solved and we're just unaware?
So it's definitely an issue. But I think over the past, 2 or 3 or even 4 years, we've seen, big tech giants really coming to the party, and, not really, relying on government institutions or political structures to be able to, change the status quo within Africa. But they bring about investment, one, and, they bring about, opportunities that we never knew existed, like, building undersea cables that really bring lightning speed connections to Africans to really, I would say, integrate Africa with the rest of the world. So it's definitely an issue that there's, very little accessibility of, the technology, as well as the high literacy rates. But then I'll flip the coin a bit and say, with platforms like, messaging platforms like WhatsApp, people are not really reliant on, texting to be able to get their messages out. So I have, grandparents who, aren't educated, who still can, you have conversation with me over a technology platform such as WhatsApp through, a voice note or just a video call. So I think technology, as much as it can be inaccessible to a huge part of our region, it still brings about opportunity to look at things differently, So as much as it is an issue, I feel like there is a lot of change coming through. And because these, big tech giants are really recognizing that, the next big opportunity will come from Africa, there are some investments and massive investments that are being made locally.
That is excellent news. I must admit, I have a client in the NPO space, and when they couldn't send their caregivers and workers out into the community because of COVID, she said, but we can actually still send video. And so they would send little video messages and do their marketing that way. So you're right, it's maybe not quite as doom and gloom as it was in the past. So if we are excited about 4IR, what does that mean for young girls leaving school, leaving university? Do you have any pointers for them on how do they get into this?
So, I mean, there's so many platforms. There's obviously the formal route of getting an education, which is university institutions, technical institutions. But there's also the informal, and I'll put it in inverted commas, sector that also provides you with, a lot of tools that you can, get yourself acquainted with certain technologies and tools just to get started. So, things like, or companies such as, your Googles, your, Facebooks really have material that is, free and readily available for anyone to kind of get off. And I mean, they catch young people in the platforms that they're used to. So in, over Facebook, over Twitter, over WhatsApp, in order for them to, while you're on your phone, you're able to, read up about what data sciences is and how you could actually, crack it in the market. So it's not really entirely based on, you acing your mathematics and physics and then getting, good marks that will get you into university. But there's also other platforms that, young girls can leverage on. And those are the type of discussions I have when I run, workshops or just, career expos. To get young girls really immersed in this new world.
That's amazing. So if I understand you correct, I just want to clarify, because I know the big issue was when we were at school, the moment you could drop science and maths, you would. I'm not entirely unhappy about that move, but anyway, but that does have implications now for a lot of these degrees that you're speaking of. Are you saying that if someone has already left school, maybe they've been working for a year or two in something else and they'd be interested, that they could find a way into this and still get the requisite learning by these informal ways that you're discussing or that you're mentioning?
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, absolutely. When you look at the tech giants, they all have some form of learning path that, is available either through, video, content or any other content that one could leverage off. And then they have certifications. So when you write that exam, it gets you to a point where, you can be recognized as a professional in that specific field. And so, I mean, that for me just says, look, education can be accessible in a lot of more, and not just in the formal sector. And it becomes more inclusive, to people of different backgrounds as well. So there's definitely that aspect that, people can still leverage off.
Wonderful. So, Mpumi, when I was, a couple of years ago, I was a learning and development manager, and Udemy had just come out, and everyone was clamoring for Udemy. And I was rocking it old school at that point in time, and I was like, but it's not the same as an accredited course, and how do we know that, what they've got in there is the real thing? There were actually a couple of contenders. It actually wasn't just Udemy, but there were a couple of contenders. How do I, as a person that maybe wants to make a move into this direction, how do I know when the content available to me is really solid? Are there preferred organizations to do this through?
So this is my personal opinion. I mean, I totally leverage of Udemy, but like you say, I've also, seen some content which I feel either maybe dated or just may not be a true reflection of really what's going on in the market, and that obviously would put me off. But personally, my opinion and my advice would be to go to that vendor that provides that certain service. So, for example, in the cloud space, you'd probably be looking into cloud infrastructure, and you would look at companies that are cloud infrastructure providers, and you would look out for content that they provide. And usually, and right now, actually, all of them have some form of platform that they get this material readily available to people. So that would be your best bet. Go to that specific vendor, get really what is the latest in terms of content, and then maybe you can use other platforms like your Udemy, edX, and so on to just supplement your level of knowledge. But best bet would be a vendor of your choice.
Okay, so one vendor with a complete or very robust program, and then you can just augment from other sources.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And what else? And I mean, specifically, I'm thinking, for us to help young women get ready for 4IR. What other than these sort of training courses, what else can they do to prepare themselves?
So, I mean, there's also some fun, ways of being immersed in technology. And, I've seen, virtual reality being that, one mechanism that really brings, the virtual world to, the physical world. And that's a nice way of actually, getting into, understanding what really is out there. So, there are applications that, are available in the application store of your choice. That you could literally just spin up, and you're immersed in that particular world. So gaming comes into play as well. So we look at gaming as just an entertainment mechanism, but that's a huge tech business, because what really runs behind that game is a line of lines and lines of code, scripts, you name it. And so it's a nice way of understanding the front end bit, and hopefully that will unlock a bit more appetite for you to actually understand what happens when you program a game, or when you program a virtual reality instance, and so on. So it's just you being immersed in that specific component that you probably have a passion or interest in, and then just building up from there.
So many barriers to entry today are about education and getting up and running to be able to go to a corporate or whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. If I was a young lady who had left school and I wanted to start looking at this data science or at this technology path, how long would it take me to work through that kind of informal training before I was really up and running and able to say to someone, look, please, can I come work for you? I actually can add value because I know enough.
Mm-hmm. So, from what I've seen, there isn't a set, time frame like the formal sector would have to say there's a 4-year degree, and after that, that already qualifies you to have a certain level of knowledge. But like I said earlier, with a certification, it says to the person hiring you, look, you were able to have the following outcomes, or achieve the following outcomes or KPIs that they've probably set in the learning path, which already gets you to a point where, if we do give you a chance, you've been immersed in it. But what's also cool about these learning paths that are provided by these tech giants is that they provide virtual labs, really. So where you could be hands-on with the specific technology, and somehow maybe use it as part of your I don't know, collateral or whatever, if you wanted to show what your capabilities are. They also provide files, for some cloud accounts, where you could have 30 days to build whatever you really wanted to build, and maybe use that also as a means of showing what you're doing, and really just showing how hands-on you really can be. But with that being said, I don't see this path being only limited to one getting employment, but it also opens up opportunities for one to start their own businesses, right? So if you want to get into the application space, and you're really good at developing on Java or Python or any other programming languages, I mean, there's nothing stopping you from really trying to build something and showcasing that to the world, or trying to get investment to get it really out there.
So, Mpumi, there you seem to have a lot of resources on how young women can get into 4IR and prepare themselves for jobs there.
So
would you be
really
able to provide us with any further information that I could maybe include as part of the session notes to this conversation that people can go and look up?
To other opportunities. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Especially entrepreneurial. So I'll put together all the links. And then people are, more than welcome to just click on them and, already get started. So I'm happy to do that.
Wonderful. So far we've spoken about really getting young girls and young women ready to step up into this technology workspace. And we know the stereotype of it being predominantly male and in my mind, particularly predominantly white. I don't know if that's changed much since I've had interaction with tech companies. But I wanted to ask you some of your experiences, if you'd like to share with us, around what's it like for a young Black girl to come into the world of tech?
Oh my! So it will come as a shock, in the beginning, where like you said, you would think we have really gone past, that phase where people still get, frowned upon for, really not meeting a specific criteria with regards to, historical criteria. I can put it that.
Yes.
But for me, it's always been me finding my voice wherever I am, right? And really being, bullish about getting my voice heard. And, a lot of, as females, suffer from that because it could be one, our backgrounds, how we were raised to be more, modest about, what we say, not really putting out what our achievements are and so on. But it's really so important, especially in the corporate space, to find your voice, find your allies, people that really will, speak the message that you're speaking, and really just being present in the moment and calling out that behavior when you can. I've had instances where, I will book an appointment with a client, and then come a time when I'm supposed to meet them and they ask for, parking details and whatever, your ID number. And, I'll send that through, but this was really early in my career. And they'll see my age and then be like, okay, really, what would this person be able to tell me? Over the fact that, they are not, your traditional, candidate for, having these kind of conversations with me. So there definitely needs to be a shift. There definitely is a huge bias still in the workplace, which I think needs to be called out, and on various platforms. And there's different mechanisms that, one could use. For me, it's been feedback as well. When something has happened, it's so nice to, pull someone on the side and say, hey, I really like what you did in that meeting. I think it was so effective. I really draw inspiration from it. However, this is, the part that really did not sit well with me or resonate well with me, in the context of XYZ. I find having those, feedback sessions with, my colleagues really help them to be a little more aware, going forward of things that they may, put forward, which may be, insulting to me as a female and as a female of color. So yeah, there's different ways of skinning this cat, but there definitely still is, that gender and racial bias, as well as sexuality bias, if I may call it that, in the workspace, especially in the tech space.
Indeed. And there, I mean, in your example, there was even ageism in there where you're not old enough to be able to tell us what to do. So these things abound. I'd like to ask you what your thoughts are on the concept of unconscious bias. Have you seen it? What are your thoughts?
Okay, so I mean, the formal definition of that is obviously that it's when a person is unaware of the biases that they may have. So keyword being unaware, and that's purely because of either their background, their ethnic groups, and just societal influences, right? Which give them, ultimately that bias that, they're not aware of. And so how I deal with it, and I've been fortunate enough to work for, big corporations that really take diversity and inclusion extremely seriously through training, mechanisms and different training mechanisms just to make people aware of such. However, in the tech space, being a lot more, I would say, still being male dominant, you find, those biases coming through. So when you have to go fetch your child at school, someone will make a comment about, oh, is it, school time again? Is it after school again? And, that for them would be, something that, they would say to anybody. But, it sits in a different place as a mother, as, a working mother even. And so there really still is that bias. And it's unconscious, but it takes a lot of massaging to get, my fellow colleagues to be aware of those certain biases. And it's just calling it out, in a nice way, like I said earlier, feedback, and really just, getting your colleagues immersed in the world that you're in, for them to be a bit more conscious of the things that they say or do, to make you feel uncomfortable in the workplace.
I hear you. What do you think is the effect of bias, any bias, on performance at work?
Ooh. So definitely, it creates a negative, employee experience. When you're being, told certain words, it really shatters your level of confidence in some instances. So that would definitely be a direct impact to, one's ability to reach their full potential and just, be a performer at work. It increases stress levels. And so people can't really, perform to their full potential. And there's many other, effects, but it's for me, top of mind would be the fact that it creates that negative, energy and experience for you as an employee, trying to crack it in the market. And really, it has, I don't know of any, positive impact that it would have, but it's definitely that.
I hear you, and it's quite interesting because South Africa's got quite a broad range of ages in the employment area. We will still have baby boomers, and we've got the millennials on the other side. And what I find particularly difficult about bias is when someone who's slightly older says something, and I know where that's coming from, rightly or wrongly so. And you've got someone who's younger in the room, and you can actually see the clash of no one saying anything, but it causes that discomfort of, oi, really, we don't say that, things like that. It's just inappropriate. And the millennials cannot get where it's coming from. And the baby boomer just, and I mean, it's not only the baby boomers, but the baby boomers coming, but like we've always done it that way. And that is so tough, because unless you've got someone in the middle who can actually manage both sides, you're right. It just creates the elephant in the room eventually.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's just a toxic working environment. And like you say, if there isn't that middle person, and it'll usually be a Gen X or a Gen Y, that will, kind of, bridge the gap between, like you say, a baby boomer and a Gen Z or a millennial, for example. So it definitely creates a toxic working environment.
Perfect. So then we have to go on to the next topic, which is, I think, even worse than bias. I don't know if that's possible, but tokenism. So as a Black woman, how do you explain this to your child? I'd like to contextualize this question, because I've heard people say to me, for example, stop complaining about how you were treated. At least you had the opportunity to be in the room.
Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of, it's okay if you were a token, because at least it opened up opportunities for you. It feels a little bit like someone says, oh, because you're so pretty, it's okay. I don't know. I could be wrong. Yeah. What would you say? You've got a young daughter. How would you describe tokenism and its effects to her?
Jeez. So it's definitely that. I would say, when you're invited to the dinner table and they literally put an invisible duct tape on your mouth and you have no voice because you are different from people that are sitting on the same table with you. I think maybe that would make a bit more sense to my daughter. I really hope that I don't have to ever explain it to her because it'll probably be a thing of the past. But I will definitely, if I were to explain it, it would be that sitting in a dinner table and not having a voice because you were different from the people sitting around with you.
And it's almost debilitating, right? You can do almost less because all eyes are on you.
Oh, yeah. And I've got a story to share here. Well, a lot of them, but I'll just share one for purposes of our engagement. At a time in my life, I was, with my team supposed to engage C-suite customer, one of our biggest customers, around a very intriguing topic, which I was extremely excited about. We had done our prep. We had made sure, we did our research. We have the right, stakeholders internally to give us, the right level of detail that we needed to, create this, proof of concept for a customer and really show them the best value that technology could bring in the organization. And obviously, the person leading this team told us, we were going to meet the C-suite executive and we needed to conduct ourselves a certain way. And so all of that was prepped, right? So we get to the boardroom and like a lot of times, I'm the only female around the table and the C-suite exec is right there. So the leader of our project team then starts to introduce the team. And, he goes around telling, who's who in the room and then ends up with me, the female in the room. And then starts talking about, how our company, attracts Black females, the most intelligent, the cream of the crop, the this, the that. But nothing about, the what we had come for on that particular day. So literally selling, the company in a light of, look at us, we are, BEE compliant. Look at us, we are doing our bit. And then without saying it, basically saying, okay, Mpumi, you can just sit there and listen to, us boys run our show. And obviously, me being me, I thought, oh my gosh, red flag, no, not going to happen, not today. And, I really had to bring my voice out and, show what I was there for. The prep that I'd gone through, I mean, I had sleepless nights about this, trying to prepare for it to go to waste. No way. So really showing that, this is what I came to do and this is the value that I bring to the team. And, I'm not just, a boss sitting on the table to make the room look pretty. And so, I mean, I've got a lot of those stories to share, but, that's still, what's happening in the corporate space and in tech also.
Right. And we're talking in general. I don't think anyone can say there's one particular company or, one particular person. There's just a history of this stuff that's still simmering and hanging out there. I must tell you, I have to share a story with you. I was very young when I started my first company, and I walked into the office of a gentleman I had set up a meeting with. And he looked up and he saw me. Now, we'd only had engaged over the telephone before. And I looked up and he saw me and he said to me, I don't know if I should buy something from you or ask you to sit on my lap.
Oh, my goodness. Ouch.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I'm cringing.
By that time I had at least 2 degrees. So it was kind of like, no, dear, there's a brain here. We're not going to do that. I just turned around and walked out and then went back.
Oh my goodness. But how did you deal with it? Did you, confront it? Not
No,
because of
I just turned around. I just turned on my heel and I walked out. Now, just to contextualize somewhat, now you're going to know how old I am. That happened in 1994.
Oh my goodness.
So it was slightly different times. If he did it today, I just smack him down. But yeah, but I think that's what we're saying is that you're saying I prepared. I had sleepless nights preparing for this thing. And you turned me into a vase. I love that imagery. You turn me into a vase. I sit there and people must see me for what is, what everyone else has defined me as.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So there's a lady, I just forgot her name, but she's the chief marketing officer of Netflix. And she's got a video that totally went viral where she talks about, I got this job because I'm the best at what I do, right?
Mm.
And being Black just happens to be the sauce. It's not the main meal. It is who I am, but it's not why I am here.
Mm.
So it's definitely that. Being Black in my view is just the sauce. And it's about time people recognize that race and gender and sexuality discrimination really is uncalled for, and it has no place in the boardroom. It has no place anywhere even.
Wonderful. And then we hope that as we go into 4IR, if we can just get some of the biases out of the algorithms, that will bring this about. As you said, your daughter's still quite young, so that there would be more of an equal playing field. Because one thing I do sort of sense, and I'd love to hear your opinion on it. I know that you work within large companies, but with a lot of clients. Do you find this is less of an issue in smaller companies where there's a slightly younger, more dynamic workforce?
Oh yeah, totally. You see the dynamics change as you engage with different companies and of different sizes, and startups, don't in most cases won't even see color, won't even see gender, won't even see sexuality, which is so refreshing, right? And
Yes.
like you say, as you move to the bigger enterprises and corporations, that's when the friction will start. It starts with the dress code. Why aren't you wearing a blazer? Are you here
Yes.
to address me, in a professional sense, or what is this, the car park?
Yes.
So definitely different dynamics as you shift across the spectrum of, size in terms of, enterprises.
Definitely. And so I think that bodes well for children, because that does mean that as they grow up, our children now are going to grow up in a slightly more accepting environment.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Mpumi, I feel like we've gained so much from this discussion already, but today I have to first I want to ask you, I want to see the mug, because when you raised the mug now I could see something was written on it. It says,
Okay. Let's see if you can say it. Says,
take your time.
oh yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, with the golden rim. Let's not miss the golden rim. And
Yes.
yes, it's important that we see the golden rim.
Very important.
So I wanted to ask you, is that a productivity tip that you've got for us? Take your time, or do you believe in something else?
Oh, no, I totally believe in something else. Take your time doesn't work in a dynamic world sometimes. But I mean, I would look at it as, proper planning. For me, I look at my calendar, not only in the professional sense, but I merge it with my life as well. So you'll find that I'll put in a 30-minute slot in my calendar, maybe for, seeing what's out there, on the net or whatever, because I mean, it's part of, my personal development. I'll put
Yes.
in another, 30 minutes to fetch my daughter from school and back. I'll put another 30 minutes to, not forget to, print something for her or whatever. So it gives that cohesive, flow in my day, and it makes sure that I don't miss anything. So if there's a deadline, it's in my calendar 2-3 days prior, and I have visibility of it. So it's really planning and not looking at your calendar as, just in a professional sense, but finding a way to merge the two worlds so that, you really just great at all of them. But specifically for work, it really helps you to, stay on top of, what you're doing, stay on top of what, other initiatives that, may go on, are, and also for future references, be able to go back and say, on this particular day, I managed, to do X, Y, Z. There's obviously the technology tools that, give you that view in terms of how productive you were based on the data that you input in your Outlook calendar or any other tool that you may be using at work, which also really helps because they'll give you a report of, at the end of the week, you had 5,000 meetings. And of those 5,000 meetings, you were constantly on your laptop. So how productive, how present were you in that meeting? Was it effective? And that gives you that ability to say, okay, next week we're cutting it down to 2 meetings from 5,000 to 2. right? And I'll make sure that I'm present and I'm, really engaged, and I bring my A game in all of them. So, there's different ways that, one could, really just, be productive. But for me, what sticks out the most would be that, cleaning out your calendar, making sure that everything is incorporated in there so that it gives you a proper view in terms of your plan for the week or even the month.
Wonderful. Mpumi, you've touched on something entirely different, though. You speak about merging your personal and your professional calendar. If I may ask, how do you feel that affects work-life balance?
Sure. So, I mean, I think in a sense we've seen with COVID and just the pandemic being upon us that look, there is no such thing as a work-life balance. Really, it's how you merge the two worlds. We will be sitting at home on conference calls all day, but in the middle of those conference calls, life happens. Children need to be fetched from school, pets need to be vaccinated. And many other aspects that really happen that enable us to be happier people and bring our A game at work. And those we shouldn't leave behind. This has worked for me, throughout my career. I actually learned from a previous manager of mine who was extremely, bullish about merging your personal life with your work life in a way that makes sense, right? So not neglecting any duties that you may have or any roles that you may hold up as Mpumi, as innocent or any other person, because that makes you a happier person, makes you a more fulfilled person. I don't know. This is my opinion. People may obviously differ from that, but I think COVID has kind of ruffled a few feathers in that people that were a bit more conservative with how people showed up at work, were a bit more open to merging the two worlds. So in my experience, it's totally made me a happier individual and has helped me bring my A game at work.
Love that. And I agree with you. I think that we're beyond this thing of work-life balance. It's more about I'm a whole person and I need to do a whole lot of things because I'm a whole person.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Irrespective.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Perfect. Mpumi, thank you so much. It has been so great visiting with you. I'm sure that there would be people that would have maybe got questions. Is there an email that we can give them to reach out to you? I think especially around the 4IR, I'm sure a couple of people would like information.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So it's Mpumi Hlomuka@gmail.com.
Okay, Mpumi Hlomuka@gmail.com. I'll be sure to include that along with the other links in the session notes. Mpumi, thank you so much. It's been so lovely speaking with you, and thank you for sharing with us some of the more difficult things that we don't want to talk around bias and tokenism. I'm hoping everyone's going to learn a little bit of something from our discussion.
I hope so. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Innocent. I love everything about, this initiative that you're running. It really gets us, out of our comfort zones. It brings out really, important issues that really need to be said and taken out there. So kudos to you for running this. And I wish you all the best in all your endeavors.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much, Mpumi. Well, I keep saying it every week. We are spoiled for choice with such lovely guests on Performance Café. I'm hoping that you enjoyed the visit with Mpumi as much as I did. It's so lovely to see a woman in tech. We don't have too many of those going around. And I'm looking forward to adding to the session notes all the links and contact details so that anyone who sees this and would like to learn more can reach out to Mpumi. And so, it's time for the weekend. And if you've liked our coffee companion session, please, if you find us on YouTube, like and subscribe. If you have found us on LinkedIn or Facebook, please like, share, and comment, and then go to YouTube and subscribe. And then we'll see you next Tuesday when it's just you and I and a solo visit. Have a great weekend.